It's not just players who suffer from complacency, it's managers as well. And that is exactly what happened to me in the pre-game analysis prior to the game against Crystal Palace. And I almost got it wrong. So in this analysis, we're going to look at what did I do wrong? What happened on the pitch? And how did I eventually just about manage to put it right? Let's go and kick some balls. Hello and welcome back to FM with Old Man Phil and to A Season with Aston Villa, Game 7, Episode 2. And this was the game against Crystal Palace, the game that we just about managed to win by 2-1. And I say we just about managed to win because when you looked at the highlights of the game, the first 25 minutes were absent from the highlights. It opened up with us scoring from the penalty. But before that 25 minutes, Crystal Palace were all over us. When we had the ball, we were passing wildly. When we held the ball, it was being taken off us. And they had got off to such a ferocious start that by 15 minutes, possession was 73% Palace and only 27% Villa. We were in real danger of losing that game. And it comes down to the fact that I had become complacent. There's no other excuse for it. I did the analysis on Crystal Palace, but I was on a 6-game unbeaten run. I had become overconfident and complacent, and I missed several things that could have helped me to avoid what was a very nasty opening 20 minutes or so. We did regain control after I made some changes in game, after stopping the game and just thinking about what was actually going wrong. And then once I found out, okay, what's going wrong, I was able to make changes and put it right. I was fortunate that I was playing in full match because it did allow me to see everything that was going on. And had I been playing in any other style, I probably would have lost the game. And this, I know, is something that happens to all of us in Football Manager when we are not focused, when we don't do the proper research. We are on a 6-game unbeaten run and then suddenly out of nowhere, we lose a game for what seems an inexplicable reason. And I almost lost this one. But the reason is I became complacent. So we're going to take a look today at what happened in the game, what I missed, and how I then managed to put it right. But before that, if you are a brand new visitor, do all that good stuff that you can see on the screen and help the channel to grow and help to motivate me to keep producing videos. So let's just quickly start with an analysis of the game itself. And as you can see, we won the game eventually by 2-1, but Crystal Palace, I think, were the more dominant team. In the end, we got 51% of the possession, but there was a time prior to 20 minutes in the game where possession was 73% Palace and 27% Villa. It was not acceptable at that time, and I think half of Aston Villa's shots came in that frantic first 15-minute spell. They appeared to be a much better team than we are. They were all over us when we were in possession. We lost the ball very quickly. When we were in possession, they were able to turn the ball over very quickly, very easily, and we were totally at a loss. Our passing was always astray, and we were being beaten in the tackle. However, the good news was that Palace also weren't particularly holding on to the ball, and although they created a lot of chances in that opening 15 minutes, their finishing was poor, and that helped us to survive. This game was all about changes that I made, and so we do need to take a look at how I was complacent, how I failed to see some very important information out of sheer overconfidence. But first, I think we should take a look at some of the highlights that happened in that first 10 or 15 minutes. So here we can see Crystal Palace in possession of the ball, but they turn it over, and McGinn has got it, but he makes a very, very poor pass. And this was quite a theme in the opening 10 to 15 minutes. Again, Palace have got the ball at the back. and they're trying to move it forward. They're being very patient, looking for space, and they are finding a little bit of space in our final third. However, we're defending well at this point, but it's all Palace. It's all been Palace, with Palace actually having the majority of the possession and passing it around. We are putting no pressure on them. There's a little ball over the top there, and we can see immediately that they are trying to get people in behind our higher line, that they are trying to expose space. And here is an example of their press, and you can see the three up the top pressing very high, and if we go long, they then have two players in midfield who are spare, able to pick up the loose ball. And Martinez does decide to go long, and they do win the ball quite comfortably. We don't have enough bodies up there, and they start to launch an attack again. From a throw-in that we have, the ball is played long, but you can see he's closed down very quickly, and we turn the ball over again. Another poor pass, and Crystal Palace retain possession. This was the theme of the entire 20 minutes. We hardly had the ball, and Palace start to build again, and they're finding a lot of space. We do get the ball, and we try to build an attack. It's very slow, that's how we're supposed to be playing. We're playing in a very controlled possession style. We're just trying to outpass them, but again, we turn the ball over. And then Onana gets the ball in midfield, finds Kamara, but again, we turn the ball over. What I'm seeing is there's very little space for our players to operate in. We are being pushed back, turned and pushed back. The ball is going backwards all the time rather than going forwards. And there's a nonsense pass which doesn't go anywhere, and Palace, with three at the back, are able to deal with that very, very nicely. And then they start building again. They're passing round our press like we're not even there. And that's because they have those three at the back and the two defensive midfielders, which is making it very difficult for us to stop them from playing out from the back. And again, they're trying to get in behind us, but they're being patient. They're looking for space. And immediately now we're going to see that they do get behind the wing back. It creates a chance, but it's a poor finish at the end of the day. And again, Martinez goes long, and look at how many players we don't have in midfield, and we're absolutely leaving it vacant, and Palace are able to pick up the ball. Here's an example of how we do break the press. Once we broke their press up top, we try to find players out wide, but Buendia has very limited passing options. Everybody is covered by a Crystal Palace defender, and so instead of passing where there isn't a pass anyway, he tries to run with the ball. And so as he runs in field trying to find someone to pass to, and we'll pause it again here, the pass is to the left. But unfortunately, the player on the left-hand side is already marked. There is no route to the player on the left. He carries on, and we turn the ball over again. And Palace go long, and we will pick the ball up. We win the ball this time. We get the second ball. We again try to build down this right-hand side. We told them to focus down the right, and we try again and build down the right-hand side. Turns him, and again you can see everybody in a white shirt, in a Villa shirt, is marked, and there is no route for us to play the ball. And so as he turns, the ball is played in field, and once again there is no way through. Those three players we highlighted did an extremely good job on us there. They're still marking, they're still very tight, and we've been forced back, and we have to start again. They had absolutely pressed us to death, and we do get the ball out wide finally, but it's a tame cross into the box. We had no chance of getting on the end of that, and Palace are able to play it out very nicely again from the back. Our press was totally non-existent, it was totally ineffective, and that was one of the things that had to go. And I had already noticed that they were just having no trouble at all passing it out, but they do turn it over. We have a counter-attack going here, but again, the pass lane wasn't there for him, and then he tried to take it on his own, lost possession, and Palace looked to build from the back again. They were totally dominating the game in these opening minutes, and I knew if I didn't do something, we were going to get hammered. But we get the ball again. It's a very scrappy game. Ball turning over. We almost lost the ball again on 2 occasions there, but it comes back out to Buendino. But he's forced back again. And we're trying desperately to get forward, again down the right-hand side. Buendia is looking to get outside, but he can't get outside. And again, you can see them players are marked. And there is no passing route available to any of the players near him. The only route is to the player highlighted in white, but that's an impossible pass to make. And so he has to go back, and he's closed down, and we turn possession over again. And this continued and continued until I was so frustrated, and you can see there's absolutely no pass available to Buendia. And in the end, he's going to make a terrible mess of it. And we are forced backwards again. This is the press that they were playing. They were putting us under enormous pressure. And in the end, it's a wasteful cross, an easy one to defend. So what did I miss? Well, let's start with what I went on. And I set the team up basically thinking that we were a better team than they were. That we were slightly better in the passing department, that they hadn't scored a goal in 4 games, that we were being very clinical in front of goal. And I just assumed, through sheer complacency, that we were a better team than Crystal Palace. I also went on the fact that other teams had done well against them lately by playing down the right-hand side, and also that they had all played with a 4-2-3-1. So I switched my very successful 4-3-3 back to the 4-2-3-1 that we had started the season with. These assumptions that I made were big mistakes, but not quite as big as the things I missed. And so when I went to have a look at Crystal Palace in the data hub, I didn't focus on anything in particular. I just looked at the screen. I looked at the way that they were going to play. And I had a sense that as long as we kept these wing backs from being dangerous, because they were poor crossers of the ball, I sensed that we would do very well. The summary that I was getting was that they were a poor team compared to the quality that we possess. But had I gone to this screen, I would have got some important information had I delved a little bit into this screen, and in particular the possession gained summary. And looking at this, they gained far more possession than the average team, 101 possession gains per game compared to an average of 90. So they were winning the ball a great deal better than all the other teams in the Premier League. They had fewer possession gains in their defensive third, though, and they mostly gained possession before the halfway line. This is an important piece of information because it suggests that whilst they may be sitting back a little, they were attempting to regain possession high up against the opposition defensive line. And this could make us vulnerable if they won possession from our defensive line. And then when I went to the Premier League and looked at the stats and the team detailed stats, I totally focused on the attacking data, and I totally focused on how much better we were than they were in attack. I didn't look at anything in terms of the defending data. They'd conceded goals, so I didn't really feel the need to do that. But had I looked at things such as the tackles won, then I would have seen that they were third in terms of tackles won, and that's a big red flag. When I look at the number of blocks made, again, they are quite high up in terms of the number of blocks made, and that means that they had numbers back defending. But the real key one is the possession won, and they won back a lot of possession, 503 times so far in 5 games, and only Liverpool were better at winning back possession. This is a huge red flag. We, on the other hand, were very poor in terms of winning back possession, and that's something that I really should have taken notice of. And so I then went back to the Crystal Palace schedule, and I wanted to have a look at the last match that they played. So I went to the player stats, and I wanted to go and have a look at the defending stats, and I should have seen that they were covering huge amounts of grounds, and some of them over 15 kilometers, including Eze, who went 15 kilometers, Nakatia went 14 kilometers, and this was much higher ground coverage than we were putting in. They seemed to be pressing very hard against the opposition, and that is exactly what you saw. So how I'd set up was indeed completely the wrong way, and what I should have done is go into the 4-3-3, and basically that would have given us a much better coverage in central midfield, and that would have helped to protect our defence a little bit better. And then what I should have done, considering I'd now realised they were going to press very hard, I don't really want them holding on to the ball, so I should have gone to a slightly higher tempo. We needed to move the ball very quickly. I also should have instructed them to pass the ball into space. And rather than just focusing play down the right-hand side, what I wanted to do, what I should have done, is to play down both flanks. This would have helped us in terms of keeping the play away from the centre of the pitch, where they were more likely to turn over possession. I mistakenly thought, because we were better than them, that we were going to play with a counter-press, but we were not very good at turning the ball over. And when they had 3 centre-backs and 2 defensive midfielders, it was going to be very difficult for us to turn the ball over in the upper regions of the pitch. And I should also have lowered my defensive line, and so I should have gone with a lower defensive line in order to stop the wing backs from getting outside. That was one of the things that they were going to attempt to do, and in order to win the midfield battle, then I should have come back into a mid block, or a low block would have been even better. We shouldn't then have been in a positive mentality, but just to be balanced, to be patient, to wait for our opportunities to arrive. We were clinical in front of goal, and we could afford to be a little bit more patient. This meant that then we could cover all this ground, that they were going to be less dangerous by having a lower line with the higher press. It would mean that it would be harder for them to press our defensive line, and we would have bodies available for us to offload the ball. And playing at a higher tempo would definitely help. And after 30 minutes of total despair at what I was seeing on the pitch, those were the changes that I made. In the second half, I did go more direct passing because we were really not quite yet in control of the game, and it seemed to pay off. So the changes had done what they were designed to do. And we did manage to finally win the game by 2-1. So what did I learn? Well, I learned that I can get complacent. Just because we are on this amazing run does not mean that we are even going to beat Rotherham, and that I have to do the research on Rotherham as well. Just because I think we are better than them, it doesn't make a difference. I need to kind of figure out not only how they are going to attack, but how they defend. Do they press? Do they tackle well? Do they get numbers behind the ball? I need to find all this out before I can set my tactic to hopefully win the game against Rotherham and keep our winning streak going. We do have a very tough fixture against Liverpool after that, and that is going to be a very, very big game. So that's it for this very long video. I hope you found it informative. I certainly learned a lot. It's not just players that get complacent. I get complacent as well, and I missed a lot of very vital information. And if you are a brand new visitor, then do all that good stuff that you can see on the screen. I'll be very grateful, and it does help the channel a lot. And finally, all that remains to be said now is stay safe, take care, and we'll see you for the Rotherham game.